Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our self-sufficiency class, and this is fruit tree growing. We are going to learn from the fruit doctor over here and Miss Cheryl Ruggles. Maybe we call her the Miss Fruit Doctor, I'm not sure, but we are going to learn all about fruit tree growing today. I think to live sustainably, sometimes you do want some things on your property. We have pecan trees and we have chestnut trees that I started growing. So you do kind of want some food that you can eat. Oh, I have fig trees too. Um, so you kind of do want some things out here on your property that you can eat. And you can do stuff. All right, She Dragon, you said you're from Austin, which is not Texas. Okay. But there's another Austin that I don't know about. But I'm Christina with Atlantic Institute, and I'm the host. I'm the coordinator. All right. And we have Cheryl Ruggles over here on her Zoom. She is the host with her husband, the fruit doctor. And so we are very interested to learn about this. All right. So go ahead, take it away. Oh, listen, real quick. Any questions that you might have, stick them in the chat if you want. And we'll pause and interrupt and read some of the questions that you might have. All right. Sometimes I know some of the questions, if they're long-winded questions, you can raise your hand on Zoom and I will call on you to ask it, because sometimes that's just easier. All right. It's in Austin in Minnesota. I am in Texas. Okay. All right. Good to know. All right, go ahead, Cheryl, take it away.
Video. Screen. Another screen, and I'm going to share the screen. See if we can get our file up. Okay, we're going to get rid of the thing to start the screen. That's the part where always.
You want to start the slideshow?
But the top is covered with the little
The Zoom bar, right? So drag that Zoom bar to the bottom.
Drive it to the bottom.
All right, and then you can go to slideshow.
There we go.
And start.
Got it. So I'm going to let my doctor here start talking.
And you just have to scoot in a little bit. There you go. Right there's where it's going to pick up your voice.
Okay. Well.
Okay, I hope everybody can hear me okay.
Yep.
I hope you can see the screen. Just talking about basic fruit trees, since we got people from different parts of the country and one overseas, a lot of what I'm going to have to say is going to be very general. I will talk a lot about Aiken, South Carolina, because that's where I'm from, but there's going to be a lot of differences for someone up in New Hampshire versus Florida. And California, there's all kinds of different things. This is a zone map here, and the zone map tells you what climate zone you're in. So if you're from New Hampshire, it's a different climate zone than Florida. And we're in South Carolina. We're on the boundary of 8A and 8B. Which means it gets down to about 15 degrees typically in the wintertime. Since we've lived here, we've been down to as low as 11 degrees. I had an orange tree that didn't really appreciate it that much, but it survived it. The apple trees ate it all up. They thought it was wonderful. And so whenever you're looking at what fruit trees to get, you want to know what climate zone you're in, because that makes a difference. It's hard to grow banana trees up in Pennsylvania outside. It's really hard to grow many apples down in southern Florida. but oftentimes the range of fruit can be a surprise, and we'll talk about some of that. I have this slide. It also talks about winter chill. Now, if you're up in the north, you probably don't worry very much about winter chill. But if you live in the south and California, you want to know what the winter chill is in the area that you live. The winter chill is how much cold weather the tree needs in the wintertime. Deciduous trees need to know how long to stay dormant before they can start budding out and growing for the next growing season. And winter chill helps with that an awful lot. It's crucial with peaches, because peaches are very sensitive to the winter chill. Elderberries, on the other hand, the same elderberries that grow in upstate New York grow in the northern part of Florida, the very same varieties. And that's pretty unusual when you have that wide a variety list. Apple trees, they actually been some research done in California, and they can live in areas of different chill, the same varieties. This particular picture is a wine crisp apple. That is not the same as a wine sap, and it's not the same as a honey crisp, nor is it related to either one of them, but it's called the wine crisp. It's a very hard, crunchy apple. And gets a nice red color even in the south. It's normally grown as a northern apple. It's been one of my best apples in Aiken, South Carolina, which is considered a southern region. But one thing about growing apple trees in the south in low chill areas is that they don't bloom at the same time. The blossoms can have a bloom season of 6 to 8 weeks long. And that means the fruit will ripen over a range of 6 to 8 weeks. The same variety up north, the flowers will show up in a week and a half, 2 weeks, and then they're over and done with. And when you harvest the fruit, it all comes at the same time. Commercially, that's a big advantage to be able to harvest your fruit at the same time. But for a home grower, it may be to your advantage to be able to stretch out your harvest, and you can enjoy fresh apples off of your tree for a longer period of time. Most apples require a pollinator, but variety is very, very important. Make sure you go to your county extension agent and find out what varieties are recommended for your state and your area of the states. In South Carolina, they have 3 or 4 zones depending on the type of fruit. And we are in one of the middle zones, and it's different varieties can be in different places. It's fine to experiment, but if you're really trying to produce fruits that you can enjoy, you want to find what's been tested and what it works good. Keep in mind that apples, peaches, plums, pears, Asian pears, persimmons, most citrus are grafted trees, and the variety of the rootstock is as important as the top part of the tree. Most nurseries, when you go to, whether you order by mail or go to a local nursery, they won't have the name of the rootstock. And the rootstock is the part that grows into the ground, and it has to be as carefully selected as the top part. And the other thing is you never want to bury the graft between the rootstock and what they call the scion. That's the top part of the tree. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. This is another picture of apples. These are Gala apples. Gala is normally known as a tree that can grow up north, but it's not a real far northern apple like the wine crisp is. And it's well known for doing fairly well in the south. Interesting thing, I don't know if you can see the mouse. I'm pointing to a little blemish on this apple here. that blemish is called by a um ah, my mind went blank. It's a weevil. It's a little weevil that likes to cut holes in the fruit. And in peaches, it forms the most common worm that you see in a fruit. But in an apple tree, the apple is typically, the flesh is typically hard enough that it can actually just kill the eggs, and this makes a scar, and it's perfectly edible and it's safe, and you're not eating the worm, and life is not so bad. But commercially, it causes a lot of problems.
I was gonna say if would have no clue if we were eating a worm, would we?
Well, there's only one thing with biting into an apple and eating a worm.
Yeah,
It's biting into an apple and seeing half a worm.
yeah.
Pears is a big fruit crop in the south, but pears also grow in the north. Now, this is the ambrosia pear. It's a very large pear, as you can see. It's shaped like most other pears. Um, but if you look at pears, the upper left-hand corner is a southern Bartlett pear, no relationship to a Bartlett. By the way, don't plant a Bartlett pear in the south or the east. They're great in California. They came from England, so I think they're good over there. Um, but the Bartlett pears is what you see in the grocery store. But the southern Bartlett is not related to that, and it's a very good southern pear. But it's not a pear that you go north because it has a pretty low chill factor. It only requires about 450 hours of chill, and it would not be good here in this area, except for the fact it has a secondary bloom that makes it be able to bloom when the primary crop gets damaged by frost. The bottom left is a Tenosui pear. Um, um, that's that is another southern pear. It's a cross between an Asian pear and a regular pear, and then the upper right-hand corner is another ambrosia pear. This is a Hosui Asian pear. Uh, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Asian pears, um, but they can grow pretty far north. Certainly zone 6 into zone 5, particularly for the Olympic giant pear. They're hard and crisp, unlike a pear, a conventional pear. Conventional pears do not ripen on the tree. You have to pick them green, and you have to ripen them inside for them to ripen properly. You try to ripen them on the tree, you'll be very disappointed with your pears and don't realize it's only because you're not harvesting them at the right time. But if you pick them green, bringing them inside, and most pears will ripen in 7 to 10 days. But Asian pears are different. They ripen on the tree. They're closely related to regular pears. You can graft between them, use the same rootstock, but it is a different fruit. It's the most expensive fruit in the grocery stores in the United States. Peaches is considered the queen of the fruit if you consider apples the king. Um, but like apples, the peaches require a lot of care. By the way, the weevil is actually the plum curculio. I just remembered that now. And it's murder on peaches and plums and apricots and anything. Doesn't exist west of the Mississippi. So you people in California at this point in time do not have to worry about plum curculio.
Quick question. One of the ladies was asking, other fruits that don't ripen on the tree. There are other fruits that don't ripen on the tree.
Um, there are other fruits that do not ripen on the tree. Kiwi is a classic example. It also has to be picked green, and it has to be ripened usually under refrigeration. and it can be a month or more before it's fully ripe. Um, there's a number of fruits like plums, um, um, that can be picked green, but they also will ripen properly on the tree.
Gotcha. Yeah, we have two plum trees. We used to have three, and I remember sometimes you'd sit and wait, and then all of a sudden it was too ripe. It was like the avocados, when you wait and you wait, and then boom, it's too ripe. Or a little weevil or something, a little something gets into it and starts eating it, and it's like, darn it, I missed it. So it's almost like we had to pull them beforehand and bring them in and put them on the counter.
Well, commercially for peaches, peaches are picked green and they're allowed to ripen, but they don't really ripen properly. And if you want to find out what a peach really tastes like, you need to pick it yourself. And but one of the problems you have with peaches is a disease called brown rot. And brown rot likes ripe peaches as well as we do. And you'll have a perfect peach. It's sitting there, it's starting to soften a bit. And you think tomorrow will be the perfect day to pick it. And the next day it's a brown fuzzy mass. And that's brown rot. It's a very fast disease. Um, and it's controllable. And I send out some handouts and there's spray schedules. And those spray schedules give you an idea how much spraying you have to do. By the way, just so that you know, in Pennsylvania, they listed all the pests of apple trees. There are 91 pests of apple trees. And so that's why apples and fruit like peaches and stone fruit take an awful lot of spraying. But if you spray, the reward is there and fresh peaches are just wonderful. Now, this is a tree that's more of a southern tree, but it can grow up into as high as zone 6, certainly in zone 7, is the oriental persimmons. Those of you who've ever had a persimmon know that if you eat the persimmon before it's fully ripe, and fully ripe means soft and mushy, you will think that you've been poisoned. You haven't been, but it's very convincing. But there's a certain number of Japanese persimmons that are non-astringent, and you can pick them when they're hard and crisp, and they're very enjoyable. You can also wait till they ripen and fully ripen, and they're soft and mushy. One of the problems that persimmons have is people look at them, well, what do you do with them? Well, these persimmons, when they're hard and crisp, are great sliced. They're beautiful sliced. This is the Ichijiki Jiro persimmon, or Ichi for short. Like it's hard to pronounce the Japanese, and I probably butchered it badly. But they're wonderful persimmons. And but the book that was sent out before the class, the Provident Living Recipe book, has recipes for many unusual fruits like persimmons. And one of our favorite things to do with persimmons is persimmon pie. We love persimmon pie. Works good with a little bit of dollop of whipped cream on top, and it's similar to a pumpkin pie, but it's a little fruitier, and we like it a lot.
Um, One of the questions was just asked, do they grow well in the heat? Do persimmons grow well in the heat?
Yes, so all the fruits that I've mentioned so far can tolerate large quantities of heat. Um, Apples, peaches, persimmons, plums is what's the picture on the slide. All do well in lots of heat. They need lots of heat, lots of sunshine. Sunshine equals sugar. You got to have lots of sunlight to have photosynthesis, and the photosynthesis is what makes sugar. Um, there's very few fruits that don't like the heat. There's some varieties of apples, and that's one reason why you need to make sure you get the right variety of apple. And check with your county extension agent. This fruit here is a very unusual fruit. This is a plum cot. Now, our friend that's from California might know a pluot or an aprium or any of the trade names generated by Floyd Zager's genetics. And he's bred a whole raft of very interesting hybrids of plums and apricots and hybrids of other stone fruits. Most of which do not have a lot of disease resistance and don't grow well in the southeastern United States. I did grow a pluot up in Pennsylvania, and it wasn't super productive, but the fruit was just amazing. People, about 80% of the people who tasted it said, "This is my new favorite fruit, Flavor Supreme Pluot." The tree grew with reckless abandon. It quickly became the biggest tree, even though it was far from the oldest tree. And it was hard to keep under control. I stopped fertilizing it, and it still just grew like crazy. But this fruit is a plum cot, which I also grew in Pennsylvania, but it was actually developed in Georgia. And it's a low chill um, hybrid of plum and apricot, but it also has an awful lot of disease resistance. It also has the highest sugar content of any measured in fruit, over 30%. That's spring satin. So that does grow in the southeast and grows up north too. Now this is a kind of a test for you. Does anyone know what fruit this is?
A pawpaw or a mango?
A pawpaw. Very good. Who said pawpaw? That doesn't matter. But anyway, pawpaw is the largest Native American fruit. Pawpaws grow from northern Florida up into New England. The fruit looks tropical. It tastes tropical. Interesting though, it is a deciduous fruit tree, and the leaves make a beautiful yellow fall color. But the fruit, when it's ripe, is mushy. You eat it with a spoon, to slice it and eat it with a spoon. It has large seeds. One of the one of the best commercial uses of pawpaw is to freeze the flesh of the fruit and use it for making ice cream, and that's become popular to make pawpaw ice cream. Still a specialty item, but Kentucky State University has been doing a lot of research on pawpaws. But
There's one other,
pawpaws are,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
I just saying that pawpaws are native from New England down to northern Florida and the eastern United States, but they've been growing also as far west as California.
I've never heard of that. I'm thinking, oh, I want to plant that and see what that does.
Of
Um,
all the fruit trees, it needs the least sunlight. In fact, when you first plant it, you need to put a cage around it and put a sun shade on it. It needs shade the first 2 or 3 years of its life. Then
Huh.
when it's old enough, then it can tolerate the full sunlight and produces better in full sunlight, but it can also tolerate some shade. By the way, one of
Interesting.
the bonuses of pawpaw is that it's the host plant for the zebra swallowtail butterfly. So if you ever see a zebra swallowtail, which looks just like a tiger swallowtail, except it's black and white, you know you're close to pawpaw trees because they have to have that tree to live.
So Alice asked a question quick. She said she has a Husoi Asian pear tree. She purchased it as a bare root, but it's been 3 years and there
Yeah.
are no leaves. So she said, is the tree dead?
If there's no leaves, where's they located at?
Alice, where are you at? Alice, if you want to unmute and talk for a second, you can. I'll ask you to unmute real quick. So if you want to answer, he was asking, where is it you're located? I mean, I can scroll up, but
Yeah, if you're too far north, it may not be spring yet for you.
Alice is in California.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if it has no leaves now, it probably is dead. That's too bad because it's a wonderful tree. I love the Hosui Asian pear, which by the way means much water in Japanese.
Okay,
Uh,
I have one question. You said most fruit trees are grafted.
yeah,
So are you gonna explain what that means? Like, and I'm
yes,
thinking like,
and this
so if I
this
go,
is the
so
slide for doing
okay,
exactly
all right,
that.
cool. Because I'm thinking if I go in a Tractor Supply around here, if I go into the feed stores, they'll have little trees, little fruit trees to plant. And I'm thinking, am I supposed to look at the bottom as well as the top, or I'll go ahead. I'm like, that would be
Most fruit
my
trees
thought.
are grafted about 2 or 3 inches above the soil line. And here is a picture of a graft, and you can see there's a little white thing here. They got caught in the graft, but the graft line is this kind of a diagonal line. And it's very important that when you plant the fruit tree, the graft has to be above ground. And one of the problems that people have is they want to mulch their fruit trees because they're used to growing tomato plants and flowers and stuff, and you mulch things to make them grow better. But if you cover up that bud union and the top part sprouts, you lose all the advantage of the bud union. And you might ask yourself, what are those advantages? One, sorry, advantage of the rootstock. My assistant is helping me here. The rootstock provides a lot of disease resistance and a lot of insect resistance and a lot of ability to adapt to soil. And it controls the size of the tree. So if you want to grow a miniature apple tree that you can keep at 8 feet tall, you want to have something like a G41 rootstock, which can hold the tree smaller. But if the top part touches the soil, it can sprout and then it can overcome the rootstock. And the next thing you know, you have a full size apple tree that can get 35 feet tall. And it will really mess up your trellis. So you're looking close to the base of the tree. One thing I have seen nurseries do is when they plant the trees in containers, they oftentimes will bury the bud union. Yeah, they don't know what the bud union is for either. And when you plant a tree, you need to make sure that you unbury the bud union and cut off any roots that might have been come from the top part of the tree. So I always look for trees in nurseries, and I look for the bud union because it's kind of a swelling or it comes off the side of the tree a little bit, and you can usually tell that something's changed there, and that's the graft. And I always want to make sure that's above ground. I buy a lot of my trees by mail without going to the local nurseries. They come bare roots, and it's a lot easier to tell where the bud union is on a bare root fruit tree. But you can make it work with the containerized trees. But yeah, you want to know what the rootstock is. I planted an apple tree, a Gold Rush apple, very nice apple in the south, in further north, good keeping apple. But I didn't know what the rootstock was. Well, the rootstock got woolly apple aphids. All the recommended rootstocks for the southeast are resistant to woolly apple aphids because if the rootstock gets woolly apple aphids, there's nothing you can do. There's no spray cleared to kill them underground. They get on the tree above ground and they can kill them then. So I have woolly apple aphids in my apple trees and I can control them with regular sprays. But this poor tree got the woolly apple aphids and it killed the tree in the roots. Sorry, what did I say? Oh, yeah, it's in the roots. And that's death to the tree. So that answer your question about rootstocks?
Yeah, I find that very interesting because I was like, oh, interesting. Because grafted to me means like feels like humans were putting two things together or something like that. You know, and
Well,
I'm like,
that's exactly what happens.
right, and I'm like, that's a lot of work for a fruit tree. I was like, does that mean I can't grow, like I can't plant a seed? Right? Can I plant a seed and grow a
Oh,
tree?
you can plant a seed and you can have a tree, and maybe one out of 1,000 seeds will make a tree reasonably close to the
Okay,
tree that it came from. But just like your kids look different than you do, apples look different from their parents.
right.
And so all the Honeycrisp apples in the world are clones. They've been cloning fruit trees for thousands of years, and they're grafted onto a rootstock. They used to
What?
use seed.
Go ahead. I was gonna say one question that I would have is, so if I plant apple trees, if I wanted like to plant four, let's just because you have to plant more than one, right? You have to at least for some of these you have to have two trees to plant, right?
At least two varieties.
So I'm gonna say, do I do one of one variety and one of another variety? Can I do that and plant those?
Yes.
Okay.
So you would need one Gala and one Liberty, for instance,
Okay.
or a Ginger Gold or something.
Okay. Could you plant two of the same, or is that not a good?
Well, if you plant two of the same, they will not cross pollinate. They're like two different branches off the same tree.
Really? Okay. Okay. So then it's kind of like I've learned corn, you have to plant multiple rows of corn because you need all that cross-pollination. So, and I've learned sometimes like the chestnut trees I had to get two because they need each other to pollinate. So
That's
I didn't
correct.
know if you could mix and match flavors of apples or what.
Well, yeah, you need to do that, actually. Commercially, they sometimes will use crab apples as pollinators because when they're picking, they don't want to confuse what type of apple they're picking. And the crab apples are all under 2 inches in diameter. So,
Right, they're a little, yeah.
yeah.
That's
Um,
which is why orchards have rows of this kind and rows of that kind and rows of that kind then because that all cross
well,
pollinate.
usually in a row, they have pollinators
Gotcha.
because the honeybees actually tend to work down the rows. So you need pollinators in the row.
Okay, interesting.
Um, Now there's some fruit types that actually have a male and female tree or vine,
Right.
like a kiwi. It doesn't matter how many varieties of female kiwis you have. If you don't have a male kiwi, you won't get fruit.
Gotcha.
But apples, they're male and female on the same flowers. And so they'll cross pollinate. Now, there's a few exceptions where they're what they call triploid um, apples, which means they have 3 sets of chromosomes instead of the usual 2 sets. And they're sterile. And so if you plant one of them, you got to have two other varieties, one for your pollinator to be pollinated by. Otherwise, one tree will produce and the other one won't. But most apples will cross pollinate with each other if they bloom at the same time. Now, if you plant an Anna apple and a wine crisp apple, they will not bloom at the same time. Anna is a very southern apple developed in Israel. Um, Grows very well down in South Florida, South Texas, all along the Gulf Coast. Um, but it won't cross pollinate with most apple trees. Its best pollinator is probably the Dorset Golden, which is an apple that was discovered in Nassau, Bahamas. Um, so that's an advantage there. Um, but up north, where you're growing more conventional apples, then most apples will cross pollinate with each other because most apples bloom at the same time.
Okay, in the chat here, Kathy said, do you need different variety of all fruit trees or just apple for the cross-pollination? So, like if I wanted to plant two apple trees and I wanted to plant two pear trees, can I plant them all near each other? And like, and I have to have two different kinds of pear tree, like, Kathy, is that what you kind of mean? Like, you need different variety of all fruit trees. So like, right. So like if you wanted to plant apples, if you wanted to plant two, let's say pears, let's say if you want to plant two pear trees, do you need one variety of a pear and another variety of a pear? Or is it just the apples that need to have the
There's a lot of fruit trees that need cross-pollination.
cross-pollination from a different breed of tree, from a
Right,
different,
so
right,
apples, pears, Asian pears, pawpaws, all need cross-pollination. Interestingly, though, yeah, they need two different varieties to cross-pollinate.
right.
The persimmons, the itchy persimmon that I showed you does not require cross-pollination. Uh, Virtually all of the peach varieties, commercial peach varieties do not require cross-pollination.
Yeah.
But a lot of trees, bushes and stuff need cross-pollination. So that's two different varieties that would cross-pollinate. Now with pears, pears have a habit of blooming at different times. And so one of the challenges with pears is to find pollination partners for them.
Interesting. Okay.
The southern Bartlett pear, which is one of the pictures I showed.
That's the big one, right? That's
No,
that,
that's the ambrosia,
oh,
and
the
it
ambrosia.
does need cross-pollination. But the southern Bartlett pear, which last year produced 380 pounds of pears for me off of one tree, may not require cross-pollination. They haven't studied it thoroughly, but it appears that it pollinates itself, and it's very, very productive.
Okay, very interesting. Good to know. Okay.
Um, Citrus trees, for those in the south, um, typically, the furthest north you can grow most citrus is zone 8. But in reality, um, zone 10 and 9 are the two principal zones where citrus is grown commercially. But by planting satsumas, you can get up in the zone 8 or in the 8B range. This particular orange tree in my backyard is an Arctic frost. It's what they call a changsat. It's a cross between a changsa tangerine, which is very hardy, and a satsuma. And it's hardy down to as low as 9 degrees. And it took our 11-degree freeze, lost its leaves, but very minor damage, and have produced, it's a good producing orange tree. But
What kind was that called?
it's Arctic frost.
Um,
But if you plant a regular navel orange tree, don't expect it to grow outside of zone 9B reliably.
very cool. And
I have a brother that moved to Oklahoma, and he lived in Houston and grew citrus trees. And one of the first things he did is he put a greenhouse up so he can grow citrus in Oklahoma. But you don't grow it outside there.
oh, I was gonna say you grow the citrus trees inside a greenhouse?
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. I'm almost toying with one of getting one of those little tiny ones for the winter. For me to put all the outside things in pots that I have inside it, just so that I can have, they're not all in the house.
Yeah, there's a lot of fruit that you actually can grow in pots and stuff if you're bringing in out of the wintertime.
Right. So Patty had a question about pruning, but I was waiting on that to see if you got to that in the slides.
What's the question?
All right. So she said I have a question about pruning. I had a Montmorency cherry for about 20 years that did very well, but I never pruned it because I was afraid of harming the tree by doing it incorrectly.
It's like giving haircuts. If you botch the job, the hair will grow back. Well, most people's hair will. But yes, prune the tree, don't worry about harming them. If you're pruning during the dormant season, it tends to stimulate growth. Um, if you prune during the summertime, it tends to inhibit growth. There's advantages to each one of those things depending on what you're trying to do. Cherries, apples, pears, Asian pears are usually pruned to a single trunk. And you want to have the branches coming out almost like a Christmas tree and kind of like just come out just like Christmas tree do. But you have a center trunk going up. Peaches and plums, Japanese plums anyway, are pruned to an open center. Persimmon trees don't much care about pruning too much. You just kind of prune a little bit off as you need to make something happen. Same thing is true. My orange tree, which I thought would grow about 6 feet tall, right now it's about 12 feet tall, and my wife doesn't like her windows covered up by fruit trees, and so I have to prune my orange tree around the windows and the glass patio door. But yeah, I mean, normally you don't have to prune citrus trees too much. So pruning is a different challenge depending on what plant that you're planting. So yeah, in my book, I spend a lot of time talking about that. This is a little berry tree, berry bush called a beauty berry. It's
That's
very
gorgeous.
pretty.
That's cute.
That's why it's called a beauty berry. It is gorgeous. Most people think they're poisonous, but they make really excellent jam. Their leaves contain a natural insect repellent, and so you don't have to worry about bugs bothering them too much. Now it's a fruit that you do not eat fresh. You need to process it. And there's other fruits like that as well. Blackberries. Blackberries can be grown far south for most
Those
of the
grow
country.
those grow wild. I already have behind my garden. I saw all the blackberry. They're all flowering, and I was like, cool, there's gonna be a ton of blackberries this year.
Yeah, but they're usually not as big as this one that you see in the
Yeah, that's
picture.
big. That's big.
And that's not the biggest one. That's not the biggest variety of blackberries. University of Arkansas has led the way in developing thornless blackberries,
Oh, hallelujah.
and they can grow over wide parts of the country. California up the northwest has grown Arkansas blackberries. Blackberries are nice because they produce in 2 years instead of 3 to 6, 8 years for pear trees, which are one of the longest trees to wait. But yeah, that was a thornless. This particular blackberry here was actually developed in Maryland. It's not one of the Arkansas varieties, but it's also a thornless variety.
That's very cool. Because those blackberries hurt.
Well, one thing else about blackberries is a lot of people don't like blackberries because they're too sour, too tart. And now the University of Arkansas has developed extra sweet blackberries,
Hmm.
the sweetest of which is Ponca, Ponca, but also Osage and Caddo. By the way, you can tell they're Indian names, and that's typical of the Arkansas blackberries, that they're all named after Indians. Blueberries. Blueberries can grow anywhere the soil is right for them. Probably you in California can't do blueberries very well because it needs to be highly acidic soil. Now blueberries, you can have, there's northern varieties and there's southern varieties. And so you want to make sure you get the right varieties for the area that you're in. We're in an area, the most common planted blueberries are what they call rabbit eye blueberries. Called rabbit eyes because they turn pink before they turn blue. And it's the color of a domestic rabbit eye. I didn't name it, but that's the thinking behind the rabbit eye. But blueberries are very productive plants, and there's been a lot of improvements done on them. There's also very large varieties of blueberries. One of the worst things about blueberries is how do you fill up your pitcher of berries because they're so small, it takes a long time. If they're the diameter of a quarter, it doesn't take nearly so long. But if you're making blueberry muffins or blueberry pancakes, you probably want the smaller ones. It's kind of a trade-off, what kind of blueberries you want to have. But you
So,
whatever, go ahead.
I was gonna say they we planted some outside the front underneath the tree underneath the front of the house in the sun. They're still little, they're still like a little wiry, but I'm thinking is it coffee grounds? Is that one of the things that helps make the soil acidic? I think there's some things that help. I had my soil tested actually.
Pine straw is typically done. Um, I don't know about coffee grounds. We're not coffee drinkers, so I don't
Okay.
have coffee grounds. Um, but I'm thinking that they are somewhat acidic as well. But pine straw is the most common thing. But most people in the east, their soil is acidic enough as long as it's sandy. If
Right,
it's clay, it may not be acidic enough. But they like acidic, sandy soil.
right.
You don't
Yeah,
want to
because
put too much lime on them because you want to keep the soil acidic.
okay, I was gonna say because I have lime, but we're in the foothills, so we have that clay. So we have to usually add some stuff to that to help break it up, not to be so much clay. But I was thinking I did some stuff on the hydrangea a couple of years ago, and I thought that was coffee grounds helped it, but I also have some fish head fertilizer. I'm thinking I'm trying to remember what I have, some of the things that I have to try to help. It's kind of funky because when you have clay, red clay, you have to add so much to it because it's so nothing. And I had the UG extension office for $9. I did a soil sample. And but I soil sampled my garden and I think my acidity was a little low. It was only a little low. It wasn't as low as I thought it might be.
Well,
Um,
a hint for you. Blueberries, there's some people claim that adding some lime to blueberries is not a bad thing. I'm kind of dubious of that, but a lot of extension services don't do that. But when you do add lime, use Dolomite lime. That
oh,
is
okay.
not the common lime. You want to use
Right.
Dolomite lime on the east side of the United States because the soil tends to be deficient in magnesium and Dolomite lime. I don't know where the name comes from, but it means that there's magnesium in the lime, and that's very important to help with the magnesium deficiency in the soil.
Yes, because there's different limes. Like I have barnyard lime I use out in the chicken coop with the chickens and the ducks and the pig. So I use barnyard lime out there. And then I try to pay attention to some of that lime. I've had I think I got from a feed store. I got hydrolyzed lime before, and that was not good at all. I think I put that down and then I lost like two chickens and I'm like, I don't think that was the right lime. I think that's the kind of lime where I'm at is the chicken capital of Georgia. Chicken houses. And I said, I think that's what they put down when they ship out the chickens and they empty out the house and they lime everything to to kill anything extra. I said, because that just killed two chickens in there. And I was like, that was not, I don't think that was the right lime. And I could see the worms all squirming around and like dying. And I was like, no, I want my worms in my soil. I want the worms there. I don't want it to just neutralize everything. So I've learned that the lime that you have is important. So like Dolomite lime would be a good one to make sure you have that lime.
Yeah, if you can't find it locally, Amazon will be happy to sell it to you.
Yeah. do you recommend fruit trees? Like, do you like, you can walk into Tractor Supply and right on the left, there's that whole row of all these fruit trees. And I tend to be like, nah, I don't really want to buy them from there. And I know we have a couple of nurseries that I probably could go look at and get a fruit tree but I'm wondering, like, sometimes is it better to buy it online, like from a better reputable place?
You're more likely to get the varieties if you're going online. And
Right.
in my handout that I sent out, it has a list of some online nurseries that you can look at.
Okay. Because I'm
Um,
thinking otherwise you're limited to what the store sells here for the area, especially even what the nursery sells. So you could get like a really unique kind that could also still grow here online.
yeah, I would say out of my trees or plants, I have what, maybe 20% local and the rest are ordered by mail.
Yeah. All
I,
right.
but the key thing is you need to make sure that you find out the recommended varieties and the
Right.
recommended rootstocks, and that's what you want to order or buy.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of one of the trends I've seen in some of the big box stores that they will label things peach or apple and won't tell you even the variety name. And don't do that.
True.
Don't
True.
just don't buy that. That's just not good. You want to know what you plant.
Right. Yeah. I tend to
You
feel
want to
like
get
I don't just want to walk past there and buy it because that's an investment. It's like $60. It's not cheap to buy some of those. And I'm like, I don't want to just walk in there and just buy five and walk out the door. I want to know what I'm buying.
well, and keep in mind they'll plant a rootstock, grow it out a year, graft it, grow it out another year, and then they dig it and sell it. That's why fruit trees cost some bucks.
Yeah, really.
And but you know, I had a I had a pear tree produce 380 pounds of pears last year.
Right. Yeah, very cool.
You can have a pretty expensive um, um, you can have a pretty expensive fruit tree, and that will pay it back pretty quickly.
Yeah, for sure. All right. What I'm like, oh, elderberry. Is that elderberry?
That is elderberry. That's another fruit that when it's ripe, you don't want to eat it fresh. You want to process it. And people ask me, why would I want to plant a fruit that you don't eat fresh? Because nothing else wants to eat it fresh. Unless you like fighting for your fruit, everything, it's kind of nice to have some fruit that the other things don't go after so much. I don't have raccoons trying to eat my elderberries. I don't have bugs trying to eat my elderberries, birds. They don't taste that good fresh, but they make great processed foods. Jams and syrups are two of my favorite things with elderberries. Um,
Right, because I'll tell you, when everything comes in and everything blooms and you have to eat it all and you're piled up with fruits and fruit and then vegetables from the garden and stuff, it's really stressful. So having some of these things you don't need that way is kind of actually nice.
yeah, this is what the fruit looks like on an elderberry. And the best varieties, the fruit hangs upside down. It makes it harder for the birds to get to them, but the birds usually haven't bothered mine any great amount. Um, but yeah, elderberries are a good plant to grow, and they can grow way up north as well as down south. Oh, by the way, the flowers are edible on elderberries. My wife has given me hints here, but yeah,
Yes.
one of the ways is to dip them in pancake batter, then stick the cluster of flowers in the hot oil, and then eat the batter fried in blossoms. This is a fig tree. Fig tree is a common southern tree. Um, Someone's here from Chicago. There is a fig called a Chicago hardy fig. It'll freeze to the ground and usually can grow back and produce, at least to almost to southern Chicago. But that's about the limit of how far north figs can grow. One of the things that's important to keep in mind about figs is that in California, there's a little wasp that pollinates fig trees. If you plant a fig tree that needs to be pollinated, and you plant it in South Carolina or Georgia or Florida, that wasp cannot survive there. So you have to plant what's called a common fig. And a lot of the California figs are not common figs. And so the common figs like Celeste and brown turkey, they don't require pollination and will grow and produce well in the South. And they're one of the easiest trees to grow. Another test, anyone know what kind of fruit that is? Flower, that is.
I have absolutely no clue.
It's a Feijoa, otherwise known as a pineapple guava. And the white petals are edible. And you can eat the petals and leave the flower behind and it will still go ahead and produce fruit. You can put the petals in a salad or something, they're sweet. This is what the fruit looks like. It's an evergreen shrub. It's resistant to deers. The fruit color is green when it's ripe. So you don't have birds that can spot it from 30 miles away because of the bright color. You can tell when the fruit's ripe because it drops on the ground. There's seeds in the fruit, but the seeds are small and you can just process them. You don't have to worry about them. I have learned from, since we've had them, is that the skin is also edible. And so you don't even need to peel them to process them. They make great jam. The pulp is really good and a lot of baked goods. It's a fruit that's grown up to probably all of zone 8A and south. But it's a nice hedge. You can prune it to a hedge and it'll still produce fruit. It's a really nice shrub. Bananas. Now, you think bananas can only be grown in the tropics. I'm here to tell you different. How far north you can plant these bananas, I can't say for certain because they haven't done the research on it. This is a variety of banana called a Viente Cojo. It's a Filipino short cycle banana. Usually when you plant a banana, like a Cavendish banana, which is what we eat in the grocery store, it takes at least 18 months for the plant to grow and to produce bananas, which means it has to go through a winter. And so the things that people will do to try to get their bananas to go through the winter is hysterical. But sometimes they're successful and they get their bananas and they're very happy with their banana. But the Viente Cojo is what they call a short cycle banana. You plant it in the spring and you harvest it in the fall. And if it makes pups and stuff, you can dig them up and keep them inside, or you can just buy more. But the fruit is short and stubby. It tends to be tart, but people who have tasted them have all reviewed them highly, including blindfold taste testers. And I say I don't know how far north it can grow. It can grow as far north as you can get them ripe. So certainly all of Zone 8 seems to be a candidate.
I was gonna say, can it grow here? Because we really eat a ton of bananas, and I keep saying if I could just grow some bananas, I'd be happy because it's the thing we buy twice a week at the grocery store all the time.
Well, it's a possibility for you. It's a new variety. It's been tested by Georgia research, but it seems to be has a lot of advantages further north. Even if you have a greenhouse, but you don't have the greenhouse heated, so you might freeze. But it would give you extra time that you can plant early and harvest late. And by the way, it does not need a cross pollinator. It'll pollinate itself, so one plant will do it. So that's the Viente coho.
I'm gonna go check the mail.
Now this is a plant that grows up into Canada. So people in New Hampshire will like it. This is a Juneberry. It also grows down in the Carolinas. So I have a Juneberry tree in my yard. And it's the berries are about the size and shape of a blueberry, but they can be purple to black. They're tasty. Some people like them. That's their preferred berries. Some people don't like them as well as blueberries. But one of the advantages of them, besides the fact they grow far up north, they don't care much about what kind of soil they're in. This particular Juneberry doesn't require cross-pollination. And a lot of the named varieties don't require cross-pollination. Juneberry, Shadberry, Saskatoons. There's a lot of names for this plant. Service berries, but they all produce an edible berry, and they're very good. They have a little bit of an almond flavor because of the seeds in them. And so that's one reason why people either like them or don't like them so much. You can substitute them in recipes for blueberries. Plus my recipe book that I sent out has recipes for this berry. And they have nice fall color. They're a very pretty tree. So even if you don't want the fruit, they're fun to plant. Kiwi, I actually don't grow kiwi, but I have a neighbor who does. I went
That'd be
walking
kind of
by.
cool. I didn't even think about kiwi.
Kiwi is easy to grow, but it's hard to get started. And you definitely want a book or something that tells you information about how to get them started. And they need a monster trellis because you put them on a grape trellis and they'll break it. They're such big vines. And there's male kiwis and female kiwis. Now up north, they have hardy kiwis. And hardy kiwis can be eaten without peeling, but they're not nearly as big as the fuzzy kiwis. But they're great tasting, and so they can grow far north. I know there's a commercial kiwi vineyard in Pennsylvania, north of where we lived in Pennsylvania, and they grew the hardy kiwi up there. But my neighbor, he grows the conventional Hayward kiwi. There's other varieties. Auburn University's done research on it, and they're a good source of information. Yeah, as I said, it requires a male and female vine. I think you can have 4 or 5 females for every male vine. Grapes can be grown all over the place. Down in the south where we are, it's harder to grow grapes here than it is most places because of a disease called Pierce's disease. For those in California, Pierce's disease has gotten loose in the California wine industry areas. And Pierce's disease will kill any vine that's not resistant to Pierce's disease. And there's not that many grapes resistant to Pierce's disease. But for those of us in the South, almost all the muscadine grapes are resistant to Pierce's disease, can be grown with no spraying and no problem. But they tend to have seeds, although there are seedless varieties. The clusters do not ripen evenly, so you have to pick them a berry at a time. It's a bit of a pain. The skin on a lot of them is pretty tough, but they're really good for processing juice, jellies. You're into wine. A lot of people grow them for wine. Um, there are bunch grapes that can be grown in the south, but there's not a lot of them, and you have to spray them a lot. Typically, grapes require a lot of spraying, and they're not the easiest plants to grow. But muscadines, on the other hand, are easy to grow, don't require spraying, but they can't be grown that far north.
I have some of those frozen in my freezer still. I don't know what I'm gonna do with them. I had them, and then I was gonna try to make muscadine wine, I think, because everybody's like, "Oh, make muscadine wine." So then I had them in the fridge, and then I realized when I went to go make the wine that I needed like 8 cups of sugar, something like a ton, and I didn't have it, and I was just like, I'm not getting to the store the next day, and I was like, you know what, let me just freeze them all because I've heard people say you can make muscadine jelly, so, but some people say you don't need it to be fresh. It could be frozen and you can thaw them and then you just mash them all up. And I thought, well, maybe I'll just do that at some point. Like, I might as well just give it a try. They say you add enough sugar and it makes everything great. You know, you add enough sugar to the pulp and the fiber. I even have figs that are frozen for about a year now in the freezer. And I'm like, maybe I'll take them out and thaw them and see how those do too.
Now, the recipe book I sent out will have any number of different recipes for figs and for muscadines,
Okay,
including
good to
jams and
know.
jelly,
Good to know.
juice. We have muscadine still in our freezer from last year. This is another fruit that's people don't think about. This is probably the most common fruit tree in the South. It's the pindle plum. I got one in my mouth. Um, it's it produces a large cluster of fruit there, and it makes the most incredible jelly. They're called jelly
What?
palms.
Oh, I'm like, what is that? I've never seen that. It looks like a palm tree to me.
It is a palm tree.
And
That's
that,
what that's what
I'm
that type of palm tree looks like.
right. And that makes those fruit. I didn't even know that it made those fruit.
They're planted by seed. One of the reasons why you want grafted fruits, in addition to the fact that you're cloning fruits, you want the right variety, um, but you can't graft these pindle palms.
Right.
But you have to plant them by seeds. But they go through a juvenile phase before they get to an adult phase. When they graft, they take a piece of the adult phase and graft it on there so the tree produces quicker. Grafted fruit trees are faster. Pindle palms, 8 to 10 years, maybe longer, before they start producing fruit. But when they start
Ah,
producing fruit, I've seen these palm trees produce 5 or 6 of these clusters. And trust me, that's enough jelly.
huh.
Right. But it's really amazing jelly, but it's you've had pindle palm jelly. It's pretty strong flavor, but it's a wonderful flavor. Here's another fruit type people don't think about, prickly pear tunas. That's the official name of the fruit. It's called the tuna. Um, the hardest thing is how to harvest them. Pick them with tongs and use a blowtorch to burn the thorns off, and then they're pretty easy to process. Pomegranates are another one that's popular. There are pomegranates that can be grown further north now out of Kazakhstan. No, Turkmenistan, I'm sorry, is the where there was a research center in the Soviet Union, and they developed a lot of pomegranate varieties, a lot of which can handle a large north thing. They can get up to zone 5, well, certainly zone 6. Um, but yeah, they're very high quality pomegranates. Red raspberries, this is a northern crop. You can grow them this far south, but it's hard to grow them really well. They're really more adapted up north. Certainly people in New Hampshire would appreciate them.
Mhm.
Um, since this is a beginning thing and we're already 15 minutes over my overtime, um, But we haven't talked a lot about pruning or planting. But the important thing is plant the tree so that the bud union, what the graft is above ground. Don't bend the roots. It's better to trim the roots off than it is to bend them. Or you can just dig the hole deeper. Um, but you know, they need sunlight, they need water. That's all that we need. Well, they also need fertilizer too. Um, Fertilizer that we need here in the south that I can express, and I don't know about everywhere in the country, but we have pear trees that need in the east need boron supplied by 20 mule team borax. Half teaspoon in a gallon of water per tree sprinkled around the tree. It's a really big tree. You may need a little bit more than that. Be careful, not too much. Magnesium, dolomite, lime can help you there. So can Epsom salts. Most trees, the most thing that they need is nitrogen fertilizer. Plain old lawn fertilizer works fine. For most of them, blueberries, you need to use azalea fruit. So just quick things, and then preserving fruit, you can dehydrate them. We can a lot. These are canned Asian pears, by the way. Canned Asian pears are the bomb. They're great. It's just amazing. I like regular canned pears, but canned Asian pears are really, really good. Well, anyway, how do I stop sharing there? Does anyone have any questions?
Here, Kathy asked, what's the fertilizer for blueberries? What did you say was for blueberries again?
Azalea fertilizer, used for azaleas and rhododendrons, and camellias.
Okay.
They need the same type of acidic fertilizer as blueberries do.
Okay, so I should get that for the blueberries.
Yeah, you don't want to give them standard fertilizer. They just do much better with the acidic fertilizer.
Right, because azaleas and they're all acidic soil. And then you said 20 Milton borax and with like a half a teaspoon to a gallon of water, and that's like for pears.
Pears and apples, and there's some other fruit trees that might need it as well.
All right.
But I see the symptoms first in pears.
You're right. So hold up your book. Do you have a link? Is that the book that you showed? Do we have that in that? Is that what we have in the handout? I didn't even open up those files. I should have.
No, it's not the same as what's in the
Okay,
handout.
but this is the one that you have that we can get too, right?
You can go to Amazon,
Right?
books that's sold on Amazon, search for book and Brent Ruggles and Amazon. And that's the only book I've written. But yeah, it's Teachings of the Fruit Doctor, Growing Fruit in the Central Savannah River Area.
I got it. I'm gonna copy that real quick.
It's designed for people that are trying to grow fruit at home. I'm working on another book for the whole South, but trying to get that.
All right, so here's some alternative stuff because Kathy said, can goat manure be used as fertilizer for fruit trees? So with that, let me just ask. I have pig and rabbit, and I have chickens. So chicken fertilizer, I know I have to when I clean out the chicken coop, that goes in the compost. But rabbit poop, I know I can put directly on like my garden. Pig poop, I've heard I can use, but that would be like on the ground around trees. You don't really want to stick that in your garden. Just because they eat all kinds of stuff. But that was good fertilizer for like around fruit trees. I think I've heard it was fruit trees or like pecan trees or some of that stuff because that's heavy in nitrogen. Do you
Yeah,
have any thoughts on any of that?
I tend not to recommend manures because manure takes a long time to release its nitrogen.
All
which
right.
is really good in a vegetable garden. Um, but it's not so good for fruit trees because in fruit trees, you need to slow down the growth because if they're still actively growing when winter comes, because the fertilizer is still putting it out, that's a problem. You want to fertilize fruit trees early in the spring. Um, my my personal recommendation is to get for most of my trees just plain old lawn fertilizer, no weed in feed. The weed part is not cleared for fruit trees.
Gotcha.
So you want to use non-weed and feed fertilizer. You have to look for it. They
Right.
usually have some, but you got to look for it. But the lawn fertilizer is a high nitrogen. That's usually what you want for that. In the case of the banana, um, you start off with nitrogen, and then when you get a flower bud, then you switch to high potassium fertilizers, potash, um, in order to push it to ripeness faster. So that's the thing for bananas.
Have you ever
Um,
heard about people that do that banana peel water? That they have like a gallon jug and they put their banana peels in there, they fill that with water, let it sit for a day or two, and they water their gardens or they water stuff with that because it's apparently supposed to have, I think, high nitrogen content or something. I don't remember.
I don't know much about that. It may be fine for your garden.
Right.
Again, I recommend just the standard
Just standard
straight
lawn
on
fertilizer.
lawn fertilizer, granular stuff that's got a high first number, which is the nitrogen, and then low phosphate and potassium numbers.
Oh, so when it says like 10, 10, 10, that first number is nitrogen?
10% nitrogen, 10% phosphate, and 10% potassium.
Okay. So
You
like
want to get
10.
something like a 22, 3, 5 fertilizer that's low in
Oh, okay.
phosphate and
Low in
potassium.
phosphate, but the higher the
Oh,
number, then
first number high. However, if you're in fire blight country, you don't want nitrogen on your apple and pear trees or Asian pear trees
right.
because that will stimulate them to grow. And fire blight strikes the trees that are fast growing trees. And so you got to have your tree less healthy. And you want to
Less
buy
healthy.
varieties that are resistant to fire blight. And keep
Right.
in mind, even when you do that, your trees will get fire blight. And although there's sprays available for fire blight, nothing's probably more effective than crying and praying over them. Um,
Right.
cutting that out during the summertime can help apples and pears as well as anything else can. Fire blight looks like someone's taken a blowtorch to the branch and the leaves are all black but still attached. It's a
Yeah,
very fast
I had something on my fig tree last year. It was kind of like a rust something they called it or
fig
something.
rust.
Yeah, and it just it like completely wilt. It looked like frost hit certain sections of the tree or something, and they were just completely. So I nobody could tell me what the heck it was, and they said, "Well, cut it all off and fertilize." So I did a fish head fertilizer. I bought a fish head fertilizer in a container. I got that somewhere around here. I need to find it. And I cut off all the sections that looked like they were dying, and I fertilized it real heavy, and I watered it real good. And this year it looks okay. I mean, it's huge. It's scraggly and huge. It probably really needed to be pruned at some point and help to
Well,
grow.
figs really don't need that much pruning, to be honest with you.
I guess not, but I mean, it's just huge.
But the fig, well, you may want to prune it so you can get to the fruit.
Yeah,
The fig rust, that's what's it called, is the problem with figs, hits usually in late summer. So your fig may look fine now, but you may get fig rust in late summer.
yeah.
Usually at home, use is usually not a big thing. It's not the same disease as fire blight, which is the bacterial disease. Um, but there are fungicides available for figs,
Well, I'm
including
thinking
copper.
if it does it, I'm thinking if it does it again, I'm going to send Cheryl a picture of it and go, okay, what is this for sure? And tell me what it is I need to do.
Well, if it's late summer and it looks rusty spots, it's fig rust.
Okay.
That's about the only
'Cause We
disease on
we didn't
figs.
we didn't get much figs off it last year. We didn't get a whole lot at all. Usually we get enough that I make a fig jam or something or fig jelly. But I bought another fig tree and I'm thinking I'm going to plant it on the other side of the yard. The lady, the extension office lady, when she came over, she said figs multiply like she said you could cut off a limb, stick that limb in some water and root it and have yourself a whole other tree. She said they take off like crazy here. So I've never heard of that, but
My Celeste fig was given to me by a friend as a stick. And I stuck
yeah,
it in potting soil inside the house until I rooted it out, and then I planted
yeah.
it out in the garden. So figs are very easy to propagate.
Yeah, I was like, well, I guess I could just be growing figs all over here. Okay.
Oh yeah, you can. Yeah, if you got a big fig tree, you have potential in the dormant season. Cut the branches in sections and then put them in pots. And um, I prefer to root them in potting soil.
So I need
And
to
then
add on my list of so one question for you. I know it's 12:30 and I love all of you for staying on here still. Do you grow the pictures that you had? Do you grow how many things do you grow on your property? Like where you're at? Do you grow a lot of those?
apples, pears, Asian pears, peaches, plum cots, or no plum cot not right now. Blackberries, blueberries, chokeberries, pomegranate, gummies.
Oh, you're even growing pomegranate. So you're growing all that in your quarter acre, right? On
Yeah, we have about a half of them.
your back, and all of that, you're growing all that on that. So I essentially could grow
Muscadines,
quite a
triolas,
bit.
persimmons, citrus.
So do y'all want to come up for a weekend and help me grow? I have an RV you can stay in. I can go
Yeah,
online.
most of the fruits, I think all the pictures in the were grown on my or photographed in our yard, except for the neighbor that grew the kiwi.
I was like, I didn't even think of kiwi because I'm kind of like, I could probably grow kiwi too. I'm like, uh-oh. So Tosca was asking, she's in Alabama. She said, we have bats, and I was wondering if there's a safe way to get rid of poison ivy, an environmentally safe weed killer. Bats? Do, do
I have
you,
a son in Round Top, Texas, which is a little town of about 87 people.
uh-huh.
And he has Nigerian dwarf goats, and they love poison ivy.
Yeah, there you
And
go,
that's what he
Tosca.
uses. He has a
You can,
movable pen and he moves around and he wants to get rid of the poison ivy in XYZ area. He puts this pen there, the goats just take care of it.
yeah, I will say on our rants and raves Facebook pages for our communities around here, we do people every once in a while, who's got goats? And like when they rent them out to me for a couple of days, because I've got some kudzu or some poison ivy or some stuff that I want them to eat. So there you go, Tosca. You need to go find yourself some Nigerian somebody, make friends with somebody that has Nigerian goats. And
Yeah, the Roundup will kill poison ivy, but you just can't spray it on anything that you want to keep.
we have
Keep it
poison
away
ivy
from.
that grows in our rose bushes. And so twice a year, if it starts to come through, Jason will go out there and he will glove up and long sleeve up and everything, pants and everything, and go out there and pull it as much of it by the root as he can. He's done that 2 years in a row. I did it the first year and I got poison ivy all over me. And I'm apparently quite highly allergic. And I had a huge 10-day outbreak of poison ivy that required prednisone and shots. So I can't touch it. I hold the bag open and he puts it in the bag and a piece of it brushed my hand one time and forget it, my arm. And I can't do it. So he's gone out there. I just go for rip out all the rose bushes, but he goes out there and he'll go down by the roots as best as he can. And he'll get as much. And I think this year it actually looks pretty good out there. So look, there's nothing. So I mean, you can have somebody, there are some people that are not allergic, or you can have somebody go up there and completely glove up. The store makes poison ivy soap that helps, we do that, and then we immediately go in and shower in the poison ivy soap, and it helps get all the oils of the poison ivy off your skin as much as possible. She said only Nigerian goats, probably. I think only Nigerian goats, right? Nigerian dwarf goats.
Well, that's what my son uses, so that's
Yeah.
all I know about. Um, but it could be any kind of goat. I just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, all right. So I got my work cut out for me. I'm gonna go online and look. I think I go online. I think if I go online to an online thing and I look up kiwi and I look up some apple and some, I have plum bushes, plum trees. I should go see how. I'm now I gotta go walk around the yard. All right. Anything else? Anything else? I mean, we're an hour and a half usually. So anybody have any questions? Is there anything else in those slides that we needed to know? Do we need a part two? Do we need, I don't know. Um, Anybody have questions?
I have a quick question. I have a prolific fig tree. I have not been able to get one fruit from it in the last 10 years. How do I keep the squirrels and birds away?
Oh,
Are they
the
eating it all? Is that what they're doing? Is they're eating it all before you can get
Yes.
to it? Okay.
squirrels, birds, wasps. Um, Deer don't mess with the tree, but they might eat the fruit. Um, yeah, we built bird net cages around our blueberries, but I haven't done that for our fig tree. Um,
They have that deer fence stuff that like that big. Can you throw that over it?
you can,
The
and it may help. Um,
the tree is
that's a
2 stories
possibility.
tall.
Oh, is it that song? I was gonna say, cut a branch, root yourself something new, and keep it covered.
Um, yeah, I know possums, raccoons, there all kinds of things go after figs.
That one is the sacrificial tree. I have a friend that plants a ton of strawberries, and she does specifically a row that is sacrificial for the animals that are going to come. So that's the sacrificial tree. Cut a branch, plant it somewhere else, keep it covered. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I would think that you might want to have uh, a, a fig tree and keep it pruned and keep it from going 2 stories tall. I mean, fig trees can get huge.
I was going to say, well, now mine is not big compared to that because mine is big, but mine's only 1 story. Wow, 2 stories. That's
Well,
very cool.
give it time. It takes us time to get there.
Can you, so we pick ours when they're just starting to turn color, and we bring them in the house and put them on the counter. I'm wondering, can you pick them a little bit earlier? That way you get them, because that would just suck that everybody, then there's just the 3 S's, and it's called shoot, shush, and shovel. Yeah, I mean,
The yeah, it's really
country
tough.
way.
There are certain things you can frighten. Um, well, someone said something about Googling all goats love poison ivy, so that's good to know.
There you
Um,
go.
there's a lot of different fright things that you can put up. People will hang CD-ROMs up, old CD-ROMs, DVDs to sparkle in the sun. There's scare tape. You can have I have one friend who's got a fig tree that squirrels go after, and she has a battery-powered owl that will hoot and flash its eyes and turn its head.
So, and now it might look weird. I know like the first year we had a huge garden, which we put string all the way around it, and there was plastic bags that were hung all along it. And apparently the noise, like the wind or anything like that, touches whatever it touches the wire, if an animal touches it, or if the wind touches the plastic bags, make the plastic bag rattle. I mean, maybe you could go, I mean, it's gonna look funky, but tie a bunch of stuff out there. I'd
Soap,
tie some
hanging soap
CDs,
around can help.
soap. You just, it's gonna be
I like the Irish Spring soap because it's the smelliest soap I can think of.
I'm thinking Irish Spring, that won't look so gaudy out there. I mean, having all this other stuff hanging off a tree. You could try those plastic bags. You could try,
My apples, I actually will bag the individual apples. Because so many things try to get, if I can get the apples, I will individually bag apples and peaches with
Are you
special
using
mesh
plastic
badges. They're mesh bags, they're
mesh
nylon
bags?
mesh. I get them from Amazon.
Will this
Brand
also
name
work
interest.
for persimmon trees? I mean, in
Yes, I
general?
also, I sometimes bag the persimmons, especially if I'm trying to harvest them later to, when they're soft and mushy, the birds will go after persimmons, and so I will bag the persimmons. If I'm harvesting them while they're still hard and crunchy, I usually don't need to worry about it. So I'll harvest some probably when it's hard and crunchy, then I'll put bags around them. The bags can be reused, just wash them. I use clothespins. I don't use the string that comes on the bag. I use clothespins because it's hard to tie the bag on with that string and almost impossible to untie it. Clothespins, you just clip it on and it's fast. And so I have to do
Yeah,
a
I was gonna say they.
investment in clothespins and bags.
I remember Amazon. I remember seeing those nylon mesh bags that people could put over branches. I mean, so you could probably do that, put that over some of those figs and see if that helps keep them from anybody getting into them. So that's cool.
It's tougher with figs. How big are the figs itself? Are the fig fruits very large?
I don't know. I can never get to them to that stage.
Uh, one of the things I did with my figs is I picked them with a pair of tongs because I had so many wasps on my fig tree that I didn't want to. I had picked a few figs that had wasps on them, and they come out pretty angry at me.
Yes,
And
very true.
that's disconcerting. So I just used tongs to pick them, and then
Very cool.
and the blueberries I actually built a frame out of PVC pipe that I set up, put a bird net over it, 28 by 28 bird net, and that saves my blueberries. And I take it down, and I can put the stuff in the garage um, on a shelf because I can just break it down. I don't have, it's not together. I use bungee cords to kind of hold it together. And I have put it over persimmon as well. But the last time I bagged my persimmons, so
All right. Any other questions anybody has?
Color. Audio.
Yes. I was just wondering, what's an extension agent? Everybody keeps mentioning, consulting with your extension agent.
are you the one that's from Great Britain?
No, I'm from California.
Oh, well, you have every county has an extension agent. And it's funded by the government. Every county in the United States has an extension agent. And then there's a college, and I think there's more than one college in California.
Here, I'm posting a
Most
link.
most of them are Georgia or state colleges. But in South Carolina, Clemson University is the extension college, and they're the ones tasked with doing research on what grows and what doesn't grow. They do research on a number of other issues as well. And they used to give out a lot of handouts. Now they have websites. UC Davis is okay.
All
Oh,
right,
okay.
I put a link in there for University of California. I don't know if it's the right one. I just did a search about UC Cooperative Extension across California, the University of California's Cooperative Extensions offices. They're problem-solving centers. They bridge between local issues and the power of UC research. So, our office here had a 5-part series on animal husbandry. So I took my daughter and we did, that's who does 4-H. If you ever see 4-H programs in the area, usually that means your extension office is connected with them.
Oh,
So
interesting.
they provide a lot of free services. They'll come out and look at your stuff. We've had our plum tree before, had a bunch of stuff on it, or it was growing plums, but then they would grow with webs on them and they would grow funky. And so I had the guy from the extension office come out and tell us what was needed for the plum tree. So they do different things like that. There's a very cool service that's available.
Yeah, that's yeah. Get to know your extension agent. They're their mission in life is to help people.
They also know about all the grants. So there's people that have moved here, like I'm still rural area. And so there are people that have moved here that want to start sheep, so they will come out and they actually have helped a lot of the people take a whole year, study the property, study what process would look the best for you to put sheep on here. How many pens do you want, and how we want feed, and we have water here, and they'll actually help lay out how it could best work.
Ah,
All kinds of stuff. Very interesting.
well,
So-
thank you.
Yeah, California has a very strong extension service.
Huh.
So yeah, get to know them because they will help you. A lot of information is available from them. A lot of the information in my book came from both South Carolina and Georgia's extension services.
Huh.
Yeah.
They'll even do soil tests. So you just, contact them and figure out who you got to send
Yep.
it to.
I put the soil in my little baggie. I have like 5 more on the counter, but I put the soil in my bag and gave it to them, and they sent it off. And then I got a printout of my soil, so I kind of could know what it needed. Because last year my garden did not produce well, and I figured it must have been the soil. So it was kind of like, now I can know what I need to kind of add into the soil to help it produce better.
Yeah, there's a fee for soil tests, but most of what they provide is free.
Yeah.
The handouts now are available online, and that's all free,
Wow.
or usually free.
But mute.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions?
Space.
Thank you. It's been very interesting.
You're
Well,
welcome.
it's been a pleasure. I love talking about fruit trees.
I would venture to say between those 2 handouts and then getting the book, I mean, studying that and reading it should be, you'd be set.
Yeah, the electronic book that got sent out, it's a Provident Living recipe book. It's 1,040 odd pages of stuff, but it's all kinds of recipes for food storage and home production. So, how to use your canned wheat and canned corn and canned soybeans, how to make milk, yogurt and cheese out of your powdered milk. But it also has a lot of stuff about growing things, especially fruits. There's an awful lot of recipes for fruit. So like Feijoa, you may never heard of a Feijoa recipe, but there's probably ice cream recipe, and
Can
I
you
know
put this
one
in my
muffin recipe.
email?
It should be, Linda.
Should be in your email. But it's
Uh,
a PDF file. You can run it on your computer. If you have a laser printer, you can print it out. If you have an inkjet printer, it costs you an arm and a leg to print it out because it's just so big. But keep in mind, 1,000 pages is a lot of pages. And
who put that book together? Linda, can you tell me your email address real quick? Because I'm pretty sure I should have it in here. Is it Linda?
I'm the one who compiled it.
It's LADONOVAN 58 at gmail.com.
LID.
LADON.
Oh, there we go. There we go. There it is. I'm like, I know I've emailed you. All right, I'm going to forward it to you again.
The book, the recipe book has a lot of recipes. That's basically what it is. Recipes and information about food storage and
Wow.
fruit and
Okay.
stuff like that. But the
Hey, thank
handouts
you.
also have spray schedules. The handouts actually was for a class that I taught here in Aiken, South Carolina. So the recommended varieties, if you're not living close by, are probably not the best varieties. But the spray schedules are important and can be helpful. And there's the list of nurseries, online nurseries can be helpful.
So you downloaded your brain into this 1,049 page document.
I downloaded the brains of a lot of people.
I'm like, because you could like just can be completely self-sufficient learning a lot of this and learning how to do a lot of this and what to do with it. I mean, this is like you'd be set.
Yeah, just the section on food storage would be helpful for people.
Right. That's what I'm thinking. Like, just, I mean, besides these, ooh, Vidalia onion upside down cornbread. Because I mean, a lot of this is old knowledge or knowledge of of
Old
survival.
techniques, absolutely.
Old, right. Like, I mean, cucumber chips, zucchini chips. I'm thinking, well, you could just have all your own chips to eat: peach chips, kale chips, sweet potato, fruit leather. Like that. I mean, you don't need to go to the store. I need to go buy it. I need to get online and go buy some vegetables.
By the way, dried sliced persimmons are really good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How to
Um,
make powdered eggs step by step, spices, 5 ways to keep meat without refrigeration. Yeah, this is all like if I needed to. Shelf life of foods for long term, longer than 5 years of storage. Dry packing,
yeah,
apples,
I took
beans,
this from
carrots.
wherever I could get it, and that's why
Yeah,
I don't
that
sell it because it's
I'm like, yeah, right, right, right. And
I,
I'm like, this is
I try to
completely
credit it to
comprehensive
people.
of
But
everything.
couple recipes to consider trying just because it tastes good. Grandma Grandma Hires carrot cake. Grandma Hires is Paula Dean's grandmother.
Oh,
Colonel
okay.
Sanders pancakes. Before Kentucky Fried Chicken was a thing, and he didn't do that till he was about 75. The favorite recipe he produced out of his restaurant was Colonel Sanders pancakes.
Right,
Absolutely nothing healthy about them,
right, right.
but they are good. I'm also a big fan of the cottage cheese pancakes. I'm diabetic, and so that's a little better for me.
Oh, is that in here? Because I would make that too in a
Yeah,
heartbeat.
but
All right.
yeah, you go into the different fruit types. You may not know what a loquat is, but I got recipes for it. You may not know what a feijoa is. I have recipes for it. Chokeberry sounds like something you ought to avoid, but I got recipes for it. Um, so yeah, the recipe books, there's a lot of information in there, and so enjoy that.
Yeah, I mean, the table of contents is 20 something pages.
Yeah,
This is cool.
it's very thoroughly indexed. A PDF viewer can allow you to do a word search.
Right,
I haven't
right.
tested all the recipes in there. There's just no possible way that I can
There's,
find
there's, yeah.
that.
Okay.
But
Wow.
any recipe that has the name Ruggles on it, you can imagine it's been tested.
It's been tested. All right. Oh, look, there's pawpaw ice cream, pawpaw preserves, pawpaw jello, pawpaw milkshake, pawpaw pie, pawpaw parfait, pawpaw custard. I'm gonna have to yeah, I'm gonna have to go online.
It helps if you're trying to figure out what to do with one of these weird fruits. Looking at the recipes gives you clues what you
Right.
can use it for before you plant it. Because
Well,
a lot of the stuff you're not going to be able to ever taste it because you can't buy a feijoa in a grocery store.
right. And like, right. And no joke, like last week I had 32 dozen eggs in my fridge from all of my chickens and ducks, and I was swimming in eggs. And I was like, I need to be making stuff for it with eggs. And I gave some people came over and I'm like, you eat eggs? Great. Here's 5 flats. Here's like 5 dozen eggs. Take those and go. Because I was like, I need to like get rid of some of these eggs out of here. And but I ended up making egg muffins, and I made a couple of different things so that I could like, I was like, well, I'm gonna just use 12 eggs, and we'll use 12 eggs for that, and we'll use 20 eggs for that. And I was like, and I'm thinking what I need to make next is some crepes, because crepes use a lot of eggs too. So I've been swimming in eggs here, like literally like 32 dozen eggs, and I was like, I need to clean out the fridge. The entire fridge was, and then I have goose eggs, duck eggs, and chicken eggs. And it was just like I went and got my toes done for Mother's Day, and brought the ladies over their goose eggs, because I can't, nobody wants goose eggs. Um, and so I brought the ladies there, and they loved those goose eggs. So I mean, they're not something that typical uh, people eat out here, and I was like, oh, I know people. There's people from different nationalities and different cultures that will appreciate goose eggs. So I've just been gifting out. Hmm?
Egg.
I can't hear you.
One egg feeds a whole family.
A goose, an ostrich egg, an emu egg, I think is like that. The goose egg makes you like a really nice omelet. It's really nice. So, all right. We need to probably get going. We're almost done 2 hours now. So I appreciate it. I got like, there's still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of you hanging on there. Thank you. Beatrice said, Doc, I gotta leave.
It's been a real pleasure, and I hope it's been valuable. And I, you'll run into